safe streets, vibrant neighborhoods, successful business and commerce. These are things that make a healthy community. We are a diverse community, rural, suburban, urban, a multitude of languages and ethnicities, ages and experiences. We are a collaborative community. Public-private partnerships make us a model community that others want to follow. It is what makes us unique. It is what makes us strong. The employees of Kent County reflect our diversity and seek to serve our communities.
People in this county, in this area, we wrap our arms around each other. We come together to collaborate, to solve problems. We're all working for the good of the whole. And I think that's wonderful. And you can see it. You can see it as you drive around Kent County.
Our impact starts the day a baby is born and a birth certificate is issued, to protecting children from deadly diseases through vaccination, to the public safety and justice provided by law enforcement and the courts, to offering veterans services and caring for the elderly. Every day we work to keep our communities robust.
I think if you are somebody who's interested in serving your community, in building a strong knowledge base and a good group of people to work with, then the county is one of your best employment opportunities out there. It's been completely rewarding in every way I could possibly explain for 26 years, and I feel like I grow every single day still today.
Leading these dedicated employees are 19-member Board of Commissioners and our County Administrator Controller, along with our elected officials and appointed department directors, placing emphasis on civic involvement, quality housing, vibrant neighborhoods, and strong, solid infrastructure to allow businesses to thrive. Professional, dedicated, collaborative, and innovative.
Behind the scenes, collaboration between foundations, charitable organizations, nonprofits, for-profit businesses, public sector demonstrated through the county, the city of Grand Rapids, the townships, all the cities and the villages in our area. If we don't come together, then we will not have the strength that we have today, and I only hope to build upon that.
Our aim is to make our communities the best they can be. We are involved in exciting development projects, sustainable recycling programs, and creative progressive prevention programming. We partner with elected officials, impacting policy ideas that become great achievements. We seek opportunities to reach out into the community and offer our services to help our residents make Kent County thrive.
Our relationship is solid, both from a staff standpoint at the county level as well as the Board of Commissioners. And they understand what we do and the benefits that we can do for the community, and vice versa. We couldn't do what we do without the help of Kent County.
While most of us are busy running our lives, Kent County's elected officials, administrator controller, and over 1,600 employees are serving the communities where we live our lives, so we can all have a place we are proud to call home. Kent County, its life well run.
Better all
I'm gonna text it to you because I gotta write. Won't let me share it. Oh, maybe no.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Kent County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today's date is Thursday, March 22nd, 2018. The time is 8:30 a.m. We'll begin today with roll call.
Good morning, Commissioners Womack, Voorhees, Bonk,
Here.
Talon,
Here.
Steck,
Here.
Skaggs,
Here.
Ponstein,
Here.
Morgan,
Here.
Melton,
Here.
Mast,
Here.
Korndike,
Present.
Kallman, Jones,
Present.
Hennessy,
Here.
Bulkowski,
Present.
Reevy,
Here.
Vice Chair Bolter,
Here.
Antor,
Here.
Chairman Salfeld.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum with 17 members. Oh, Commissioner Womack with 18 members present.
Just under the wire. Excellent, thank you. We'll move then to invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll call on Commissioner Korndike.
I would like to introduce our Commissioner Voorhees, Preacher Voorhees, to do the prayer for us today. Thank you.
Well, our first meeting of spring, we can be again excited about
the time of creativity, of new beginnings for so much of life and of the nature that God presented to us. And so we're thankful for the opportunity to start another time of County Commission and acknowledge that there is a higher power. And so let's give thanks this morning. Heavenly Father, we come with grateful hearts that we can be your hand extended. For government was established by you that we might live in orderly lives. And so we are thankful that we who are sitting here as elected people were chosen to serve in this way. And for those who have called government their calling in life to work, we think of those who work daily in protecting and bringing safety to our community. And we are thankful for those who take care of all the other details that are needed to have an orderly and beautiful Kent County as we have. And so we come with thankful hearts. We ask for your guidance and direction. May we ever be mindful of one another and for those we serve, and because we can remember it's all about the people and the process in which we serve. We want to do it well, and we thank you for it in Christ's name. Amen? Amen. Let us say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Voorhees. We will move to agenda item number 5, which is our special order of businesses. We'll begin today with our first quarter Quality Service Employee Award. Back in 2010, the county launched the Employee Recognition for Quality Service program, which was designed to recognize those employees who provide outstanding quality customer service to both the internal and external clients of the county. Darius Quinn, our Human Resource Manager here at the county, heads the committee of employees that makes this selection. I'll ask him to come forward and present the first quarter award and give some background on that recipient.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to thank you for another opportunity to come and tell the story about what another great Kent County employee has done to receive the Employee of the Quarter award. Each quarter, we have a small selection team that gets together and we review on average 20 nominations that have been submitted throughout the quarter. This committee is comprised of members of management and various unions that we have here at the county, so we want to make sure that everybody gets a fair shake and throughout the process. This morning, we're here to recognize Tom McCutcheon from the Kent County Sheriff's Office. I've personally had the pleasure to know Tom for the last almost 20 years, and to know Tom is definitely a treat, and you'll hear more about the individual who nominated him this morning. And that individual wrote, Officer Tom McCutcheon has continuously mentored our junior during times of suicidal depression, making bad choices, and even drugs. He's never turned his back on him and has always made sure that he was okay, even while Tom was off duty. He's taking him fishing during the summer to help him feel comfortable while talking to his counselor, and has built an irreplaceable relationship with him. Every time you see him, he's smiling. Even when some kids are raising chaos, his demeanor changes their thoughts and their actions. There aren't enough words that I can come up with to even partially describe how supportive he has been to our entire family. I wish there was a way to repay him for the good that he has done. Him being recognized for going beyond his level of duty will only be a small thank you from our family. He always tells me, never give up. So with that, we'd like to ask that you please join us in congratulating Tom for his notable contributions to
Good morning. You know, when I hired Tom some 25, time flies, some 25 years ago, I envisioned Tom as being the person that was going to lead us through the door, lead us into the altercation. And I like big guys. But in the end, I didn't realize then what I realized soon after, that Tom's not only a big guy, he's got a big heart. And he has opened the doors to so many hearts of so many kids in this community. He's developed so many relationships that it's just absolutely amazing. And though I think he could break down any door that we might have to have breached, he's certainly opened the doors to lots and lots of kids in our schools, in our community. And his service will be felt around here for many, many years to come. So Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. An award well deserved. We move to item B of our special order of business and call on a good friend of the county, Birgit Close with The Right Place. Good morning, Birgit.
Good morning. I'll get this to work right. Oh, there's the clicker. Technology. Good morning, everybody, and thank you on this beautiful spring day. It's a little chilly, but as I said to somebody this morning who was complaining about the weather, we don't have a nor'easter going on, so our airport is okay, so life is good. Thanks again for having me. I just want to do a little bit of an update, as I always do with you. And before I start this, I really do want to thank the county for your partnership, your friendship, your collaboration over 33 years now. And which brings me to my first slide. I've become the historian of The Right Place, so which means I've been there a long time, actually over 30 years now. But I think it bears a little bit of repeating, and some of you at this table remember those days, and some of you are too young to remember. So now and again, we have to remind ourselves whence we came from. So the early 80s in Michigan were not pleasant. The unemployment rate for the state was 17%. In Kent County, it was 11%. In Detroit, it was much higher. In Benton Harbor, it was almost 30. I lived there at the time. Manufacturing wasn't doing well, and the cost of doing business in Michigan was pretty high when we compared it to other states. How things have changed. I know our unemployment rate today is pretty low, and people are complaining about that, but I'll take the low over this number any day of the week. A group was formed in 1984, led by Jay Van Andel, and there's a gentleman on the back of that wall, Dick Booth, who was one of the first 13 original founders of The Right Place. So this commission has been a part of the founding and the really all the work that we've done over 33 years since 1984. They hired the Battelle Memorial Institute. The result of that study was to establish a one-stop shop economic development organization. At that time, if you were a business in Kent County, or you wanted to be a new business in Kent County, there was not one door to walk through. There was basically no door to walk through. And so it was really to strengthen local business, underline local business, to assist local businesses with their expansions, to help in the creation of new local businesses, and then, and only then, to attract new businesses to the community. Most people think the last one is what we do the most, but actually the other four we do more than anything. So the other suggestion out of that study was to establish an engineering school at Grand Valley State University, and that happened. Don Lubbers made that happen, and a master's degree engineering program. And just a little sidebar, 80% of those engineering graduates from Grand Valley actually stay in West Michigan, which is a pretty darn high retention rate. There's a board that Wayman is now part of. Welcome to the board, Wayman. We'd love to have you. This board has always been represented on our board. It's the partnership between public and private sector that's really reflected on the board, and we're really charged with long-term economic growth. What's interesting about our funding model is we were really the first 501c6 private-public partnership in Michigan for economic development. Our funding mechanism has never changed. We raise funds every 5 years. We're about to embark on campaign 8. 80% of the funding still comes from the private sector. So companies, large companies like Steelcase and Amway, and small companies like DeWise Manufacturing. 10% comes from the public. That would be, you are our largest public investor. And then townships, cities, City of Grand Rapids, and so on. and 10% comes from foundations. And that formula has not changed. And obviously, I report to a board of directors of investors, but also the leading business and community leaders in the area. So here is 3 decades of impact, and I want to underline that we don't count what we don't touch. So if somebody does a project, hallelujah, go forth. But the numbers that are here are those that the Right Place actually actively worked on. So 4.7 billion in investment and over 45,000 jobs. What is not reflected in those numbers is that when we announce a project, all you see is the top of that iceberg, right? The tip of the iceberg, i.e. the job numbers, et cetera. But underneath the water, we do a lot of peddling to make that project happen or to help companies, and that includes anything from working with a local community on a stop sign, on an infrastructure issue, on a signage issue, whatever they need, running interference for them with anybody whom they may not know how to work with. So really, we are that connector, that collaborator. I mean, I'm not a football person, but the quarterback who brings all the other resources together so that they get what they need. We also host a number of industry councils. We had a supply chain management council conference yesterday at Grand Valley with almost 300 participants. So we do a lot of things to keep our companies front and center in terms of knowledge so they are armed so they can make better decisions. So just a little bit about the work. You've seen this before, I think, but I want to stress this again because this is really important. If you ask anybody, or most people will say, well, that's that organization that brings all those new businesses to the area. But actually, we spend 80% of our time on that red and that blue bubble, retention and expansion. And there's a number of reasons for it. We have over 1,000 manufacturers in Kent County. We have over 2,000 in the 13-county region. Losing one of those to another state because we didn't pay attention, it'll take us a lot longer to find a new one to replace those jobs. You know, we're all in sales. It doesn't matter what profession we're in. And you don't want to lose a customer to another company. And so we go out on 400 calls a year. We also leverage our relationships through banks and CPA firms. And through those calls, we then figure out what do these companies need. We often aggregate that information and then also bring those companies maybe a new program through our industry councils. So when we see a trend happening, we want to be sure we catch it early. And then out of those calls also come our projects, our expansions. So we want them to know that when they need anything, to call us and we'll walk them through it. I had an email yesterday morning from someone, old-time manufacturer, long-time manufacturer in the city. We're planning on doing something. Before we do that, can you come here and walk us through what we need to watch out for and what we can do and what you can do to help us. So those two are very important. The other reason we want to make sure that we take care of our own first, when a new company is considering us, they're not just considering us. They're considering Indiana or Ohio or Pennsylvania or whatever. And they're always asked to meet with somebody without us. Another company, not necessarily a competitor, but somebody they can talk to kind of verify the things that we tell them, right? And so we want to be sure that our local companies know that we are there for them first and that they say, oh, this is a great place to do business. We would welcome you to the community, you know, so that they become part of our sales team and not say, I haven't talked to those people in years. I don't know, you know, what they'll do for you once you get here. So, and then, of course, we do marketing attraction. And we do that for the whole region because in this environment, global environment, 1.5 million people in our region, we want to be sure that we really present all the assets. For instance, we have the airport, and I appreciate being on that board with several of the commissioners here, but Muskegon has the only deep water port. So we want to be sure that we represent our infrastructure and all of our assets to everybody. We do that attraction at trade shows with site consultants. We go on foreign trade missions, and we have about 135 to 140 foreign-owned companies that are now making West Michigan their home. So retention, expansion, attraction. Very quickly, our strategic plan, The plan is for 4,200 new jobs over 3 years. We are in year 2 of our plan, $150 million in new payroll and $500,000 in capital investment. Our key industries remain advanced manufacturing, food processing and agriculture, and agribusiness, the life sciences. Obviously, we look at it all day, but also growth at Mercy Health, growth at Metro Health, and then the IT industry is growing very, very quickly. On the bottom, you see what we call foundations, good infrastructure. I hit a bump yesterday, and I had a flat tire. It's going to cost me a lot of money today. Work-ready talent. We work a lot with Hello West Michigan, et cetera. And then, of course, quality of life, quality of place has become way more important in our work than it ever has been, because talent is looking for quality of place, not just a job. So the blue bar is really where the board comes in, what's next, what's new, where do we have to stay really connected, and what does the right place need to do in order to continue to be a leading-edge economic development organization. And I'm happy to report that in January, we became an accredited economic development organization, or an AEDO. There are only 65 of them in the United States. It's a lengthy application process. You provide the International Economic Development Corporation with a lot of data. They bring a team here to talk to our board members, to talk to community leaders. Are they just telling us a nice story, or is this really work? And then they go and canoodle and figure out if we really are worthy of this honor. And we were awarded that honor at an annual conference in January. So we're very proud of that. What it really says is that we are first and best in class, along with a number of other of our colleagues around the country, and that we are really interested in continuous improvement. So this past year, 2017, we completed 23 projects. Our goal was 17. We surpassed the new and retained job goal. We had 1,400. We got almost 1,500. New payroll, over $70 million, and over $120 million in capital investment. A little short of that, but we've got a year and a half to go. And we announced just last week a big project. I think you know that Kent County remains our core county, but we also have contracts in Ionia, Montcalm, and Nowego. They pay for that themselves. But we put about a $56 million project in Montcalm to make condensed milk, because our dairy farmers really needed another outlet for their product. So we are ready to announce several other projects that are in the pipeline. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Very good, thank you, and congratulations on that accredited status.
Thank you.
Thank you just achieved. It's not surprising, but very good to hear
Well,
about
it's
that.
always nice to get outside confirmation, you know.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Questions for Birgit? Commissioner Morgan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Morning, Birgit.
Good morning.
I just have to tell you, I always considered the right place our economic development arm in Kent County. And when you look at the return we get for our investment, it is just phenomenal. And I really appreciate the fact that we were able to park the Regional Air Alliance, which we think is really an important business partner at the airport, within your organization. And we did that pretty seamless, and it seems to be working very well. So not only does the right place try to attract and be the economic development engine in the county, they also are great partners. So
yeah, we really appreciate it, and I've said this many, many times, and which is why I also appreciate being on the airport board. But in this global environment, to have an airport that is run well, that's growing, obviously we had another phenomenal month, is an unbelievable, it's part of the engine that's driving the region, because everybody is going somewhere today. It used to be that it was just big companies who did overseas business, but mid-sized companies today are always on the go. So it is a global economy, and that airport is I wouldn't want this job without that airport. I've said that for many, many years, but it's true, because you have to get people and goods back and forth. So
We just appreciate your leadership.
it's great. Thank you.
Well, and I'm going to piggyback on that too, not only in that context, but in the context of helping us in decisions we make. You served on our committee that made the recommendation for our new administrator, and just playing a role in that regard outside of what your traditional job functions would be is very appreciated.
And I appreciated doing it. Let me just say something. There are economic developers who are deal makers, and obviously we're making deals, but I always wanted to be also a community builder, and so I look at that role that you just described, and with the airport and so on, as part of my role of what I want to give back to my community, so that it isn't just, deal making is fun, and we do it, but I also want to make sure that the rest of the community functions. So I was very appreciative to be asked to serve.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Corndeck.
Thank you, Chair. Also, thank you for your service to our community and to the Airport Board. You bring an aspect that we really appreciate on that board. I'm going to make a report in a little bit in regards to the airport, but 60% of what goes through the travel going through the airport is business, and 40% is personal and leisure. What do you think is the biggest challenge that our community has economically in 2018 and into the future?
Definitely talent. We have, and it's not just West Michigan, by the way. This is a national issue. There are about 2.5 million jobs in the United States that are going, begging for skilled folks. There are about 100,000 of those in Michigan, and we have a similar issue in Kent County. And what you have really are two ends of a spectrum. You have those who have become disaffected or who are no longer skilled to do the kind of jobs that our companies need today. And how do we really re-engage with that part of our population to upskill them, as it's called? And then on the other end, we need to make sure that our young people who are today in school get the skills they need to either go on to a two-year degree or a four-year degree or a skilled trade or a certificate. And I have to say, some of those statistics are not pleasant. In statewide, we are below third grade reading level nationally, and in Kent County, only 51% of our kids read at third grade. And this is Kent County. We're not talking just an urban school, we're talking all schools in Kent County. So that's a real concern, because if you look long-term at our talent pipeline, so every 8-year-old who can't read at grade today will be an 18-year-old 10 years from now who won't be able to read properly. If you don't read properly, you can't read a manual, you can't use a computer, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an issue. The governor is obviously addressing some of it through his Marshall Plan for Talent that he just rolled out. But we also need to make sure that our kids get exposed to, reading, writing, STEM programs, et cetera. There is a new program down at Western that is a combination of Grand Valley, a GRCC and Western, and John Kennedy was heavily involved. It's a applied manufacturing lab that we're trying to get apprentice programs going, because there are really good jobs out there that we really need to prepare students for. Next month is a career fair that Michigan Works leads. Last year we had over 9,000 students at DeVos Place from all high schools that were being bussed in. They have 4 large clusters of businesses: manufacturing, healthcare, IT, and construction, to introduce young people in the middle grades and in high school to really look at these careers as really good careers. And they're now bringing machinery in there to make it more interesting and interactive. And it's growing to the point where now probably it's going to be 2 days. So we have to do all of those things to prepare our young people for careers of, not just today but tomorrow. Talent is our biggest stretch. So, when neither Grand Rapids nor Detroit made the Amazon shortlist, and frankly, we were probably a dark horse to begin with, but it had to do with that long-term talent pipeline. Because you can look at those statistics and say, 10 years from now, I can't find the people I need. And the other issue was, the other issue was transit. So we have to, as a region, what we learned when we put the proposal together is while we have good transit in the immediate areas, if you go beyond those, we have a problem. And so does Detroit. So those
Thank
are two issues. Sorry for the long answer to
No,
a short
perfect.
question.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm always amazed at the efficiencies in your funding model. You said it's consistent.
Yep.
80, 10, 10. It seems like we're getting a great return on our investment for sure. Can you go just a little bit deeper in, as far as the private, that's 80%, and the foundation funding's 10%. How is that so consistent? Do you get other people that want to give? I mean, how does that work? What do you do with
Well, what we do is we have for many years continued to grow our investor base. So today we have almost 300. So what we do is, it used to be a pretty easy ask, to be candid, but it isn't anymore because we have, a lot of other people or organizations, I should say, also are looking for investment. But so we have to make the case that when you invest in the right place and you get a $70 million of new payroll, kind of ripples through our community, whether you shop at a Meijer or D&W or wherever, or you can buy a home, so that you really understand what your ROI is. And so, yeah, we have expanded our private investor base considerably. So,
And do you have a list of the foundations?
It's fairly short. I mean, most of the banks now use their foundations.
Okay.
We've done some work specifically in a rural community with the Fry Foundation, but that's a fairly short list, but it's also a substantial investment. Now, one of those numbers in there is from the Fremont Area Community Foundation because they fund a large part of what we do in Owego County.
I always like to give them a little shout out because they do so much.
Yeah, I mean, foundations are, we are very, very lucky, fortunate in West Michigan to have as many robust community foundations as well as family foundations.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Birgit.
I touched on one of your favorite subjects.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we've been working about making that system a lot more effective for the real needs, not the 40-foot bus needs. But I don't want to digress there. I want to go back to the skills gap because you said, we have to do all these things. And I do agree that talent is an all of the above issue. And one of the areas is some of the simple stuff. Believe it or not, 40 plus years ago, I was in middle school and I had wood shop and metal shop. And even more surprising, I actually made a gun rack when I was in the 7th grade that hung in my parents' or my grandparents' cottage for many years. And I've always loved metal and wood work. And I don't know if you're familiar with what they're doing in Europe. I don't know if you've ever been to Germany, but there's
never been there. No.
Again, that it's awesome to set our kids in front of the computer, but man, our kids have way too much screen time, which leads them to either.
Is there a question somewhere?
The question is, are you working to get wood shop and metal shop back in middle school?
It's not. That's not actually the right place's focus because. We need the output of all of that, if you will. We need those young people so that we can place them in jobs. But there are, what we have done, which is kind of a normal way of, we pushed everybody, and this is nothing against the 4-year education. I have one or I wouldn't be standing here, okay? But we pushed it so far over here that we said everybody who's going over here to do wood shop or metalworking or whatever, well, those are for those kids who can't make it over here, right? The pendulum is starting to swing the other way because those jobs, if you look at welding or if you look at apprenticing in construction work or whatever, are beginning to get noticed again. Where we have to do a lot of education, and there's something called Discover Manufacturing, which we actually do. It's the right place. It's the Manufacturers Council, and it is Michigan Works. We work together on taking students and actually taking them to a plant and showing them that they can really make a good living doing this. But I don't agree with the screen time because every contemporary manufacturing plant today, I don't care if they're making med devices or auto parts, it's all computer driven. So it has to be connected. The two have to be connected, right? So it's both computer skills and also technical skills. I won't mention the company, but it's actually a German company we brought here, and they really do an apprentice program, the German model. And they had a school come through, they hosted a school, teachers and counselors, and they pointed out a young man, who's about 27 years old, making $70,000 a year, because he'd gone since he was 18 through their program. And one of the counselors said, I have 3 degrees and I don't make that kind of money. And the gentleman happens to be German, who said, that's why I'm trying to tell you, right? So we are beginning to see a shift in not this or that, but this and, okay? I can tell you that today, most contemporary companies want somebody with at least a 2-year community college degree or at least a certificate. That is a given. And that's where Michigan also needs to, ramp it up. Our key partners in all of this is Michigan Works. We have 4 community colleges we work with to bring them really also the knowledge of what the companies out here need. And then you are seeing a return to more of a balance in terms of more skilled trades, not labor, skilled trades. Yeah.
Okay, we have time for about 3 more questions. Commissioner Vaughn.
Thank you, Chair. Sure good. I go back to the mid-'80s when you first came to Plainfield Township and was at the board that time.
Yes.
I thought our contribution was 35 cents a resident or so at that time.
It's 17 cents a resident.
Oh, really? I was lower than my memory's bad, see? These are my short-term memories.
But we take 33 cents. That would be good.
I'll go talk to the board and see if they'll do that. But we were wondering if that would be a good idea for the community, and it turned out to be a wonderful idea. In who we compete with, are we lacking? You mentioned school issues, roads,
yeah, our roads are
construction. What's our biggest outage in the community besides what you mentioned with the
well,
school
obviously Michigan is rated a D+ when it comes to road infrastructure. We need to really figure this out sooner than later. Infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, wastewater treatment, and broadband. If you go into some of our, even in northern Kent County, you're going to have connectivity issues with that last mile. And so I can sit on a high-speed train somewhere in the world and, do my emails, and I might lose my connectivity when I'm driving from here to Ionia. And that's just really, in this day and age, not a really good thing. It makes us uncompetitive. So, and we have a wastewater treatment capacity issue. I've talked to the Right Place Board about this, and they always look at me with very puzzled. But with the exception of Muskegon, most of our wastewater treatment plants are at capacity. And so that's something we definitely need to. There's 15 of them in West Michigan, in that region. The city of Grand Rapids is obviously improving theirs because we have now a number of microbreweries, and some of them are no longer micro, and they're contributing a lot to that. So we have to look out for the whole infrastructure issue, no question. And broadband, I would say, is in many ways as bad as our roads, because it is the Internet of Things is here. And if we don't figure that out, then you can't expect somebody in Cedar Springs then to be an entrepreneur if you don't have high-speed connections.
Thank you.
Commissioner Womack.
Yeah, just want to thank you for your service to economic development here in West Michigan. I had a few questions. One is, what is the current unemployment rate? Because I look different places and I get different numbers, but their understanding.
Sure, Commissioner. The overall unemployment rate for our what is called metropolitan statistical area is 3.1%. Now, there are areas in our rural communities as well as our urban communities where that unemployment rate is much higher. So the 3.1% is an overall rate. In some of our suburban communities, it's lower than that. In some of our urban communities, it's over 15%. So it's an overall number that we use, but there are differences in different regions, for sure.
And with this prosperity and growth and business growth and new jobs and expansion, how do you see that continuing as we move towards 2024? And are there any obstacles that could stop this growth?
Well, we are overdue a recession, so I'll be very candid about that because we are an auto state. I think the auto industry is going to do, is maybe slowing down. But for me to look out 6 years is nearly impossible. We look out about 3 years. We are looking at a very full pipeline for 18 and 19. Beyond that, I would hazard a guess what could hurt us, what could happen. I will tell you this, and this may or may not. Tariffs are not a good thing to do. We've already had companies who are telling us it's going to slow their growth or they will lose customers. So while it may sound really good, but it isn't. It will cost us jobs. It will not gain us jobs. We have to see how that goes. NAFTA is an issue. If it doesn't get renegotiated properly, Michigan would be hit harder than any other state. So.
Okay. And when we talk about cloud storage companies and e-commerce businesses like Amazon, do you think that having required coding classes and computer language classes in Michigan would help to have our students more prepared for the future?
Well, there is a program called Girls Who Code in our high schools in West Michigan. Most definitely. I mean, if you look at where industry is headed, whether you make automobile parts and it's an automated process, or whether you are a cloud computing company, or if you're talking about mobility. I don't know if any one of you listened to Jim Hackett on Monday at the Econ Club. I did. Jim obviously is the CEO of Ford now, and he talked a lot about mobility, driverless cars, self-driving trucks. They're pretty much around the corner. All of that has to be stored, all that data has to be stored somewhere, which is why having data storage companies in the area is great help. But then we need the folks who also know how to mine that data, do that data, be coders. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Right, thank you very much.
Commissioner Talon says he has one very short question.
Okay.
Chair, well, I'll ask for a brief response if you could. Could you talk about any conversations or work the Right Place is doing in regard to kinds of equity issues?
Let's just say we are.
Looking at the business ownership in the county, and
we're working with a group of board members to look at exactly that. That's when you think about thought leadership, we're doing that. Yep, and Darius still here? Yep. Darius and I and others are looking at exactly those kind of issues. You bet. Because it goes to that high unemployment number. So yes, we're on it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Final question. It's baseball season. I'm going to throw you a softball. Tell us how Kent County's contribution to the Right Place compares to other local counties and jurisdictions.
Like I said earlier, the county's population is 642,000. Your contribution is 17 cents per inhabitant of the county. In Ottawa County, it's double that. In Saginaw, it's $1.05. In Columbus, Ohio, it's 83 cents. So you're getting a heck of a bargain, I would say.
All right, very good.
We'll take more, though.
All right. Thank you again for your time this morning. Always very interesting, and
Thanks. I appreciate all the good questions. I really do. I prefer to have dialogue, so thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to our final special order of business and call on our treasurer, Ken Barry. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again this year. I would like to take just a quick moment to introduce, I brought my own audience today. My stepdaughter Chloe Schmidt is a senior at Lowell High School, and as part of her government class requirements, she is here to watch you all work and to watch me work. So I hope you'll welcome Chloe, and if you get a chance to say hi after the meeting, that'd be great. The annual investment report. I've been doing this for, about 20 years now, almost. Every year I start out with how we invest, and that is following what I call the SLIDE principle. Some of you old timers should remember what that is, or maybe you don't remember anymore what it is.
Oh, we do.
But safety, liquidity, yield, in that order. I'm very proud to say that in over 21 years as treasurer, we've never lost a penny of principal of the county's money, ever. I hope that continues. I intend for that to continue for however long I am in this office and beyond. But those are the principles that we follow. We want to make sure that we keep the money, that it's available when we need it. So when you go into a private meeting and come out and say, Ken, we need $2 million to buy a piece of land, we have it available for you so that we can get the deal closed. And then finally, we do want to make some earnings on it, but that is the least of the three. To those in the audience, I apologize that it's kind of small. You all received the written version of my report as well. But basically, we invest in three main groupings. First on the list is government securities. These are all principally federal, but there may be some state and even some Michigan municipal securities within that. As of 12/31, that we had about $68 million invested there. The second grouping are pooled funds. There are two specific funds that we invest in that are designed for investment by municipalities. So they invest in all the things that we are legally allowed to invest in. One is called the Class Investment Pool, and the second is MyLab. Between the two of them, we have approximately $36 million. And then we have quite a bit of the bulk of our investments are in CDs and or money market funds with various banks throughout the state. By law, in order for us to work with a bank or credit union, they must have a physical presence in the state of Michigan. So you'll see all of the banks on this list. Pretty much every one you'll see signs within Kent County. There might be a couple that don't have a physical presence within Kent County, but certainly within the state of Michigan. The highest being Bank of America at $33.6 million, on down to the Consumers Credit Union at just over $500,000. You'll see, let me go back just a second. You'll see after the names of those organizations, there is a number. And that is the Bauer Financial Services Bank Star Rating System. And this explains it. There is one bank on our list that is 3-star, which is adequate, that's fine. But every other one above that is our 4- and 5-star banks. And almost all of them are 5-star banks. We have really sound banking institutions here in the state of Michigan. We're very confident. We continue to do due diligence to make sure that they are staying sound and keeping up the rating systems. But we don't really have any worries there. The two pooled funds are also rated under a different rating system, but they are rated AAA-M, which is the highest rating that they can earn. So we're very confident in those as well. The total fund is as of 12/31 was $356.6 million. We earned for the general fund just under $1 million, and for the total pool, $3.4 million. Just as a comparison, last year the general fund earned $524,000, so it was about an 85% increase. and the total pool last year earned $2.2 million. So it was a very healthy increase there as well. One of the things that we're within the law and therefore also our investment policy, we are limited to the amount that we invest in any particular organization or pool to 25%. You'll see that the largest grouping is the individual grouping is government agencies. We're actually not limited to the government agencies, but we are at only 19%. The pooled funds are about 10%, and the largest bank investment that we have is only 9%. So we are very, very well within the restrictions that we have there. And then the other banks being 17%, that's about 10 banks that make up that 17%. I've been asked in the past about where this money is, what funds they are in. Again, I want to reiterate, this is not the fund balance for those funds. This is the amount of cash we currently have had in those funds as of 12/31. So the largest was the general fund. Then we have the solid waste disposal, DPW. And then third on the list is local government investments. We've talked a lot over the years about the local government investment pool. We provide that service to approximately 25 cities, townships, and authorities, villages and authorities within Kent County, and they have about a little over $75 million invested through us. And then you can see the rest of this. And for those who like charts, we have the same information in a chart. General fund makes up 23% of the cash, on down to grouping of miscellaneous funds, which was negligible. Questions?
Thank you, Ken. Questions for Ken? Commissioner Thorndike?
Thank you, Chair. So Ken, I don't see my bank on this list.
Which bank is that?
Chase.
Chase, that is true. We don't have any investments with Chase. They are not competitive in the interest rate world. They choose not to fund their bank through certificates of deposit. So we have had money with them in the past, but they're just, we're earning, 1 to 1.5, on the investments that we have. They're maybe 50 basis points. They're significantly, and that's a business decision on their part.
So do you see the interest rate movement? Obviously, they went up yesterday. Is that going to be advantageous for the county this year, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. The growth that we had from 524 to 966 for the general fund was almost entirely based on interest rate increases. We've already seen one Fed increase, which does get reflected in the rates that the banks and other investments pay. I heard that they're pretty committed to 2 more increases unless something dramatic comes up. So yes, I do expect that our investment earnings will continue to go up.
Thank you.
Commissioner Antor?
Thank you. Morning, Ken.
Good morning, Chair.
You had mentioned the local contributions coming in as a debt service. Is that, or is that an investment service? That wording just kind of threw me over.
Okay, it's called the Local Government Investment Pool, and that's where we are investing on their behalf. So they will set up an account with us after the Board of Commissioners has to approve all of those agreements. We'll actually have another one. There's another one on my desk that the City of Rockford wants to participate, so that'll be going through the process over the next month or so. And then they will send their money to us, and we invest it as part of the larger pool. It's an advantage to them, obviously, because we're dealing in larger volume, And with investing, volume helps drive rates up. Also helps us because adds to the volume so that we'll hopefully get a better rate that affects our funds as well as the local government funds.
Commissioner Stack.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Ken.
Morning.
So the general public out there who's had these 401ks expanding in the last year at like 12, 15%, would raise questions about why are we only recovering 1.5%, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with the restrictions on what we're able to do in this investment. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. We are the general, what I'll term the general government dollars, are restricted to in what we can invest to fixed income investments, meaning very similar to what we have. Governmental securities, money market funds, CDs, and what's obviously missing from that list is equities, the stock market. We are not allowed for general government investing to participate in the stock market. That's where the 10, 15, 20% increases have been occurring. That's a state law. Obviously, that's reflected in our investment policy as well. Yes, so there are investments out there that are legal investments that we do not participate in. The main one is that you might hear about is commercial paper. They're a fine investment. We just haven't seen the value in it, and to be quite frank, within the first 6 months that I was in this job, our friends next door got burned on a commercial paper that missed its payments, you know, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I've just been very leery ever since. So, and I don't feel like we're leaving yield on the table to do that. So, but that's a good question, and that is why.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Thank you for the report, Ken, and we'll see you around here.
Thank you very much.
We move then to agenda item number 6, which is public comment. If there's any public comment today, please come forward. You have 3 minutes. State your name and your address. Good morning, Betty.
Good morning, Chair. Betty Blaze, MSU Extension in Kent County. And normally I don't speak during the public comment section, but this is a little bit different for me. I'm here, excuse me, at the end of a cold, so I apologize for my voice. I'm here today to tell you about a transition in my position. I've been moved at my request from a district coordinator position to a coach and mentor for new district coordinators coming in. And that is, the other part is to introduce a new district coordinator for District 7, which includes Kent County. So first of all, I would like to thank you for the support and kindness you have shown me for the last 22 years that I've been working in Kent. I've really enjoyed it. It's been such a privilege. And I'm happy today to introduce our new district coordinator, Erin Moran. And before she does her introduction, I just want to make sure Wayman knows, because I think he'll be interested. She's a proud alum of the University of Michigan. So, yeah, I know.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just a very quick introduction of myself. My name is Erin Moore, and yes, I am an alum of University of Michigan, but for those MSU fans out there, I am also, a split down the middle with my family. So just wanted to say I am just thrilled to be taking over for Betty. Betty is a wonderful mentor and has spoken very highly of this board, and I'm excited to work with you all and learn your roles in the next coming months and over the next few years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome aboard, Erin, and thank you, Betty, for your years of service, and it sounds like you're still going to be helping out.
I will be around for a while. My plans are to retire at the end of July, so we'll see.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment this morning? I am Not seeing any, so we will move to agenda item 7, and I will call on Commissioner Korndike for the consent agenda.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move our consent agenda, items A through D, including resolutions 17 and 18 of today's date.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Voorhees. Questions or comments on the consent agenda? I do not see any. This is a roll call vote.
On the adoption of the consent agenda, Commissioners Womack?
Yes.
Voorhees?
Yes.
Bonk?
Yes.
Talon?
Yes.
Steck?
Yes.
Skaggs?
Yes.
Ponstein?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Melton?
Yes.
Mast?
Yes.
Korndike?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Hennessy?
Yes.
Wilkowski?
Yes.
Breivy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bolter?
Yes.
Commissioner Antor?
Yes.
Chairman Salfeld?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 18 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. We move then to agenda item number 8, which are our resolutions. There's 6 of them today, and for the first one, I will call on Commissioner Breivy.
Thank you, Chair. It's my honor to move to adopt the lead task force report and recommendations, the resolution 19 of today's date.
Support.
Support by Commissioner Korndike. Questions or comments on this agenda item? Commissioner Melton.
Not a question, just a comment. The way that it reads, the way that it was put together, obviously the amount of time and consideration, I shared it with a couple of persons in my family to see if it read the same to them. Very, very well done, and obviously a lot of time put into it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner, and that's a good opportunity to have Commissioner Breivy give us a brief presentation on it.
Yeah, thank you. We had a lot of great help. I appreciate the assistance of Commissioners Korndike and Hennessy and Matthew Mazzettin and Adam London from the Health Department and several other members of the Health Department too that are here joining us today. So I am proud to present this report in our recommendations. And as you know, Chair Salfeld gave us this charge back in 2016 when Shana Schroll was the chair of the task force. And it was created as a result of the increased blood lead levels of kids in Kent County. And we were charged with identifying the contributing environmental factors of the lead-based exposure and illness, and investigating possible interventions, and also making a final report, which is what we're here today to do. And we met monthly, and we received numerous testimony from several experts, toxicologists, service providers, environmental health experts, and even Lieutenant Governor Calley joined us too. So a few lessons that we learned along the way. We learned several lessons. 1978, as many of you may recall, it was before my time, but it was a critical year, and lead paint was banned. And so here in Kent County, we have, housing stock in the city of Grand Rapids. About 4 out of the 5 homes still have, they were built before '78. And 3 out of the 5 homes in the county were built before '78. So there's a significant number of homes that, have the possibility of having lead paint. And another thing we learned that remediation is extremely expensive, and so is abatement. And typically, it's between $10,000 and could be $40,000 to eliminate lead in a home. And there are, many preventative actions people can take, whether it's, taking care of their home inside or outside, making sure there's no paint chips. And since 2001, we learned that lead poisoning has been reduced by nearly 90%. So there's been progress, much progress that's been made in the last couple decades, reducing kids that are affected by lead. So with that said, we had an increase, and that's kind of the result or the reason for this task force. In 2015, Kent County had the 3rd worst percentage of children with elevated lead levels in all of Michigan. And in 2015 and 16, the 49507 zip code alone had more lead-poisoned children than other zip codes in Michigan. And one thing to note, too, in 2015, there were roughly 580 children with elevated blood levels in Kent County. And compared to Flint, we've heard of the Flint water crisis. There were around 150 children affected. So it's definitely a significant problem here in Kent County. And another interesting fact, too, is in one particular zip code, the 49507, there were more kids affected by lead than in Flint. So, our three major zip codes that have been affected are 49507, 49504, and 49503. So additional lessons we learned, drinking water is not the significant source of lead in our community. Municipal water is tested from time to time, and lead is not a problem there. The health department does offer a sampling kit to have your lead tested. It's only $18, and I'd recommend those that are not on municipal water, maybe well water, if they have concerns, to get their water tested. It's a pretty easy thing to do. And another thing, too, there's isolated homes with fixtures that contain lead. Up until 2014, that's just a couple of years ago, still kitchen faucets, sink faucets contained lead. So you may have something like that in your home that lead is kind of leaking out of that. So keep in mind, it could be a fixture, it could be the solder that's in pipes. Paint and dust are the primary exposures that we found here in Kent County. So lead paint around the windowsills, along the baseboards, and even on the outside of homes. Sometimes you'll see on an older home with wood siding, the paint could be peeling off, or you might see somebody repainting and they've scraped it. Some of that paint can get into the soil, and that can create a problem. When there's young kids, 8, 9 months, when they're starting to crawl around, they also are at the time where they're putting everything in their mouth. So their fingers might touch some of the paint around the windowsill that could have lead dust on it, and the fingers go right into the mouth. So the primary exposure is paint and dust. And, another lesson that we learned, too, is there's obviously a housing crisis here in Kent County, and the shortage of low-income housing has continued to create a problem with the lead situation. And then children in suburban, rural areas are probably tested at a lower rate than urban children. And, this problem isn't just exclusive to Kent County. It's something that nationwide, cities, counties are dealing with. So it's something that requires all of us to work together. So with our research and the information that we heard, we have several proposed recommendations, and there's some actions that can be taken to identify the causes of lead poisoning, eliminating exposures, and creating universal testing of children. So there's three main recommendations that we have that could require immediate action. So first, we want to charge the Kent County Community Health Advisory Committee, also known as CHAC, to work with stakeholders, whether it's local or at our state level too, to develop plans by September 30, 2018, for how the community can work toward fulfilling this report's recommendations. And also, we charge CHAC to review the elevated lead levels, monitor progress and the report's recommendations to make sure they're followed up on, and also update the community annually. Finally, we'd like to encourage the state of Michigan officials to implement the recommendations that were in the governor's lead poisoning elimination board report. That was there were some significant recommendations in that related to funding, policy changes, a variety of things. And as a task force, we support that report, and we'd like to see that followed through. So a couple of recommendations that we have. I don't know how many of you have the report with you today, but you received it a couple weeks ago, so you can refer back to that if you have it on hand, or you can follow up later on. But first, one of the recommendations would be to educate the public. And we have some specific recommendations, and just a couple of those are, continue to inform the community of the risk and ways to reduce it. This is something, we hear from time to time about lead, but it may be something like, my house is clean, I take care of it. But just so people are aware of the hazards, that's something important to remain educating folks. Another thing, too, is inform the community about how to mitigate the exposure and the risks, and provide information for building permit officials and hardware stores, of the possibility of lead in the work that they're doing. Another thing, too, would be partnering with local churches, organizations to distribute information and reach the community in a number of ways. Next, policy objectives, and these are really important. I think any change that's going to be made is going to have to deal with, policy. And so policy-related goals to improve health outcomes from data sharing to advocating for more resources from the state to identifying creative solutions to leverage other resources. As you may recall, one of our legislative priorities this year is working with our state officials and retaining maybe some more funding for lead, some equitable funding here. So continually working with them on ways that we can change that. So a couple examples of that, and you'll find that on page 51 of the report. Expand the data sharing. So the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has significant data on lead, on families that are affected by it. And so if we can use that data along with the stuff that our health department has, that will impact how we're able to address this issue. And then coordinate resources with other housing, rehab, and weatherization resources and private sector investments. So, if somebody's promoting a rehab program, make sure that they have information about lead. And one thing, too, I think is important is working with our local municipalities and finding out what, each city, village, township seems to have a different way that they address lead, or maybe they don't specifically. So finding out what's working in those communities and how we can, have some best practices to share and gives them some suggestions on maybe some policies that they should implement. So, and then also encourage the state to provide additional funding for outreach, education, assessment, and abatement in the zip codes that are most affected by lead. And one thing, too, we could do is use the GIS system that we have here in Kent County to take layers of data, pinpoint maybe some housing stock that we find is continuously, we have kids maybe that are affected, but maybe they've lived in the same rental property, and connecting the dots that way would be something very important to do. Some of it may take working with local medical providers and health department, working with the Rental Property Owners Association, the Association of Realtors. So there's different layers of government and the public that should be working together. Next, risk identification and elimination objectives. So working with members of our community to identify risk and eliminate the lead through these 8 concrete recommendations, and that's again on page 51 and 52 of the report. Offer periodic training. There is training available already, but making sure that our health department can promote it. That's one great resource, just to make sure we get the information out to all the stakeholders in the community. And educate our contractors, rental property owners, and also individuals that are maybe new to property owning and maybe new to the community, or maybe a new contractor, making sure that they have the education and receive the information about lead and how to best work with it. Next, we have healthcare objectives, and we'd like to, we have several great healthcare providers in the area, and we have some priorities that we'd like to implement them to inform them and also improve outcomes for our families here. So a couple of the objectives here. So encourage medical providers to test all children 9 to 12 months and also at 24 to 36 months of age. As I mentioned before, those are just critical times where, a child, a 9-month-old, is crawling around and, putting everything in their mouth, but also between those ages, of like a year to 3 years, there's significant development that goes on, whether it's physical or, mental development. And a child that's affected by lead can have problems with their growth. They can have problems with their brain development. And so that's a critical time where their bodies are growing faster and their minds are growing faster at any other rate, at any age faster. And one thing, too, I think is important to point out is in our community, there are about 65% of the kids that are on Medicaid in our community are affected by lead. So that's a good percentage, but keep in mind, too, that there's about 80% of kids throughout Kent County that are not on Medicaid. And Medicaid requires kids to be tested. So there could be a significant number of children that are not being tested that we're maybe missing this opportunity on. So that's why it's very important to promote with our healthcare providers and also the American Association of Pediatrics promotes this too about universal testing, so at those ages. Finally, too, with this, health insurance companies should include lead screening expectations for providers. So, also giving the doctors incentives to do those tests and to check the blood levels for those children. And then one thing, too, going back to that, we also need to engage. We have a great system here of maternal and infant health care providers, and I think we have an opportunity to prevent the situation with maybe new moms or pregnant moms, and giving them information on how they can make sure their home is safe, and so they're ready for that when their child comes. And so we can partner with our maternal and infant health home visiting network through the health department, through Bright Beginnings with Spectrum. There's lots of resources that we have available in our community. So, once again, this is a list here of the members that were on the task force. We had a wide range, and I really appreciate all the questions that were asked, the advice that was given, the thoughts that they gave us. And, we had members from the health community like Dr. Fawcett and Paul Hahn, who's done significant work with lead right here in our community and is well-versed in the options that are available. And he also has served on the governor's lead task force. So with that, if you guys have any questions or comments, I'll be happy to answer questions about the task force or what we did. And then also I have some friends here from the health department that maybe can answer some more technical questions. So, yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Bravey, again for your leadership on sharing this, especially when you did start out that way and helped fill the gap when we had that opening. And Commissioner Korndike and Hennessy as well for serving on that. We do have a motion and a second before us, so we'll continue with questions. Whether they're things that Emily can answer, the health department will decide. So next on the list is Vice Chair Bolter.
Thank you. I also want to echo all of your thoughts, Chairman Saalfeld. This was a long process, and I know you did a really, really deep dive. And many of the people on that list were volunteers that put in their time, and I just so appreciate your leadership and your hard work and the members of the committee, because it just shows that our community cares about our kids. I am really concerned, and I'm so glad you mentioned the need for testing out of the city. That is a concern. What are we doing? We say we need to communicate. I know a lot of our pediatricians are independent practices. They're not part of larger systems. Are they getting that communication? And this might be a question for the health department. I really don't want this to end here with a recommendation. I really want to see some action taken, and we make sure that these kids are getting tested. So how do we do that? How do we follow through on that? Did that come up, or were there suggestions?
Well, I know every pediatrician office is different. Even in my personal experience with my two boys, my older one was tested, and then my younger one, wasn't. There wasn't really a concern at that time, but, I just think each pediatrician and each doctor in each office seems to have a different way that they do things. So I think it's just a matter of working with our Kent County Medical Society, or even, the med schools locally, and getting that information to them. I know MSU is very aware, and they're training their students because they've been very involved in Flint. But just working with our medical society and promoting it, expressing the importance, and I think too just telling them, this is the amount of children that were affected, and these are the this is what lead does in our community, and maybe it's something that we've haven't paid close enough attention to the effects of it, but it can definitely have a lifelong effect on a child.
I guess I would encourage Adam or someone to put out some sort of advisory or something to all the providers, because it's just, I think people take for granted that, where I live or my neighborhood, it is newer homes, but a lot of them predate 78. These kids need to be tested everywhere, so.
Yeah, and it's not just lead in the homes either. It can be, maybe near the school they're at, there's some paint or something like that. Yep. So you have some information for us, Judy?
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that. My name's Chandy Kelly. I'm the program supervisor for lead at the health department. One opportunity that we have right now is we're working with Mercy Health. They have an innovative primary care office, and we are working with them to roll out universal testing. As you can imagine, lead is a very complicated topic, and it doesn't just stop with the primary care providers. It stops with the care plans that are making it really difficult for universal testing. So it has to start at a higher level where that policy changes, that they will cover kids that are not on Medicaid. So right now, all kids that are on Medicaid get tested, or most of them do, but only 20% of kids on commercial insurance are tested. So the pilot program that we're doing with Mercy Health is we're going to have universal testing at their innovative primary care, and as that gets rolled out, they'll start rolling it out to all their primary care offices.
Is that pediatrics though, or is that?
Nope, that's a primary care, but they have pregnant moms, so we're also focusing on primary prevention. So they see children and adults, but another major objective for the health department is to do primary prevention, so we're preventing the children from even getting lead poisoning rather than reacting to lead poisoning kids all the time. So we're rolling out an education program, so all moms on their first OB visit will get 5 to 10 minutes of education, and then in their overall pregnancy, they'll offer a group class that's kind of an hour-long, like Lead 101.
Again, I would still encourage stronger communication
Yeah,
with those independent pediatric offices.
Yep, we send
because-
out the CDC recommendations to all kids that have been tested, because often the providers are not testing versus based on the recommendations. And just another thing, the recommendations currently are not sufficient. Providers look at the recommendations, they have to go through about 6 questions to ask parents, and a lot of times the parents don't even know the answers. So providers, when they order a lead test, often just are checking, okay, do they have Medicaid, I'll order it, and if they don't, these kids are not being tested.
Commissioner Antor?
Thank you, Chair.
Any more questions? Any other questions?
Thanks, Emily, for all this work. It kind of dovetails a little bit to Commissioner Bolter's question as far as education. It's a great document, and there's a lot of stuff in here that kind of jumped out at me. I caught low-hanging fruit, kind of the obvious stuff. Is there a way that you guys, maybe I missed it, you're going to be able to get this information into all the cities and townships and villages for them to look at, so you know who best to get the word out within their community as they're inspecting houses and so forth, that they can have this at their disposal and start to look for things that maybe they haven't been.
Yeah, I think that too will be coming out of the health department. I know we have Commissioner Hennessy helped create a chart with kind of like what's available currently, or the situation, and maybe what programs are available to help out with that. And that's something that we're going to be using as a framework too with the committee that's on the Lead Task Force Committee that's coming out of the CHAC committee. That would be a framework, but I do think it's important to let people know the services that are available or the suggested recommendations at our local levels. But it'll be something that will be dispersed throughout the community.
Commissioner Talon?
Thank you, Chair. I'm amazed at the thoroughness of this work and want to add appreciation for that and of the report. I'm also find the number of recommendations overwhelming, and I'm curious still who's ultimately responsible for following up, making sure these things happen. Am I understanding that the CHAC is supposed to do that, or the Lead Task Force Committee that you just mentioned? On all of these things, it sounds like 6 more staff people will be needed to do that.
Well, yes. So CHAC, is a committee made up of a number of community leaders from, Kent ISD to some medical providers. And so we felt like that was a good committee to have this task force be followed up on. So we're going to form with some additional members a specific subcommittee on that task, or on CHAC, to focus on lead and to make sure these recommendations are carried out. So there's obviously some that are maybe a little bit easier to start with, like some of the education campaigns and, what Chandy's mentioned is already happening. And I think a lot of it too will fall under the health department. And, there's a request a little later on for an additional staff member for the health department. And that will allow the health department to address issues like lead in the community, emerging issues like PFAS, to add that extra person to focus on this.
Just one follow-up, if I could. The one that really jumps out at me is 3A and the risk identification, the one where exploring opportunities to make funds available for lead assessments and for home improvements. That just feels like a huge lift for anybody. So we're putting that on check in this subcommittee to figure out how to find dollars to address that. We know where there's a lot of homes that need abatement or remediation or whatever. And, they're waiting, right, for that to happen. I guess I'm kind of questioning the urgency and assigning this to a committee, and can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there are, working too with the city of Grand Rapids, they have received some grant funding, and, they're working on it from time to time, and also the land bank too. So I think, not just the health department, but working with other areas of our local government, that's how we're going to be able to get it done. So working with other stakeholders.
Commissioner Jones?
Thank you, Chair. So it sounds like you have a two-tiered vision here. You have those who still need awareness, and then you have those with the awareness and need it to be fixed. So on the side of still needing to increase awareness, I'm wondering if in some communities, they send out tax bills, and sometimes there's little notes at the bottom of those tax bills. Have we thought about connecting with those communities to say, hey, do you have any extra expense to add a note, if your home is older than 1978, please test for lead? Are those kind of ideas floating around?
Yeah, there's a number of ideas, and, that's definitely something to look into. And, locally, we respect that our, local governments have their local control and, how they want to handle it. But at the same time, we need to issue best practices and, providing citizens with just a piece of information like, is your home built before 78? You might want to consider this. That's definitely something important to take note of.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thanks.
Commissioner Stack?
Thank you, Chair. Also, Emily, thank you so much for this deep dive into this critical issue and to the rest of the committee. It strikes me that one of the significant differences between what you've looked at and what the city of Flint went through or is going through that sort of highlighted and sensitized all of us to this issue is that in Flint it's a situation where they're going to respond by eliminating the risk. The water exposure, the lead exposure in the water is going to be eliminated. Our risk isn't going to get eliminated, is it? We're dealing with a source of contamination, the strategy of which is principally containment as opposed to elimination, so that lead will still be there for generations, probably. So this is a long-term issue that we'll deal with for many, many, many years. So that's why I think it's so important that you're looking at issues that sort of institutionalize that response so that we have ways of dealing with this year, next year, 10 years, 15 years down the road. So thank you for that incredible work. And I do have a follow-up question. Under our rules, we're up for adoption of this, and adoption doesn't necessarily mean adopting all of the recommendations, or it may mean adopting all the recommendations subject to referral. Can you just, what's the intention on that? 6.2.
Yeah.
You know that.
I have a good sense of it, but I want to get it in front of me. When we adopt the report, we're adopting the report as it's presented, which is different, obviously, than the file and receive, which has no substantive effect. This does have substantive effect in that by adopting it, we're saying we've putting our stamp of approval on it. So in your resolution, you'll see that not only do we talk about adopting it, but then we charge, as talked about earlier, the Kent County Community Health Advisory Committee to address some of the items, and then some of the items are, for example, sending communications to the governor, et cetera. Those would be things that we would do. So we'll work through that. But yeah, that's I think how that's viewed. So.
We'll see a number of these coming back through committee then.
Possibly. Okay, Commissioner Womack?
Yes, Ms. Breeby, I want to thank you, Commissioner, for your work on the lead task force and the continued work. I had a few questions. When it comes to lead testing, we have the free lead testing at the Kent County Health Department. Is that our primary location for lead testing, or is it like the only? It's probably one of the easiest to find when you're searching online.
You know, kids can go to the health department and get tested, but there's also several labs throughout the county. You know, Spectrum Hospital has many labs, and you know, a blood test can be done there too. And initially, they usually do a capillary test, which is just a heel prick, and it's really quick and easy, you know, just on the child. They barely even feel it. But then there is, you know, other testing too that maybe is a little bit more in depth. And there's some private practices that may offer the testing too, but not enough. Do you have any additional information on that?
The majority of our children are tested through our WIC program at the county. So if the children are enrolled in WIC, so on Medicaid, they are getting a capillary test. And then we have one nurse on staff that does the follow-up to try to get a capillary test converted to a venous test. So if the capillary is high, above 5, then we need a venous. And so we, that's where we struggle to get parents. They don't want their children poked in the arm. It's a little more invasive. And our cap to venous rate is about 35% of parents are getting that venous draw, which will confirm if they have lead poisoning or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
So they could still, you know, have a higher lead rate if they're tested, you know, just on for a capillary test, because it could just be on their skin. But if you do the venous test, you're going to know if it's in the blood.
Okay. Have you explored some of the differences on how cities and townships who are getting grant money for lead poisoning and lead abatement, how that's distributed between homeowners, landlords, and developers? Because when I talked to occupying homeowners, they were telling us that there were families that to get their home abated, they could get a loan. But if they sold their home to another family member that rented it back, they were able to get some of the money without having to return the money. So they said that for a homeowner, it was harder in the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan, to get financial help, but they definitely could get a loan. And some of them are worried that these loans could come with liens on their houses if it's not paid back. But they were very happy to know that they could get loans, but they saw loopholes. And this is just what we were told. There's nothing. I'm asking you because I haven't had a chance to look into the policy and find out this is true, but I heard it from a number of homeowners that they felt that they were at a disadvantage to those that did not occupy those homes when it came to getting resources for lead abatement.
There are different programs for homeowners versus, you know, landlords. And there are loan programs, like a low-interest loan that's available. So, you know, I'm not sure of the situation that the people that you spoke with were in, but there is, you know, an opportunity for some assistance. But as far as I know, I don't know of the differences between the loan options. So
Okay.
that's something we can get more details for you on. You can
And,
talk to the city and see what they're dealing with.
And long-term renters, I know when we think of rental, when I was growing up, and I think of rental, it's always an apartment. You're renting temporary because you're looking to own your own home, but they're like long-term renters that have been renting so long, or leasing a home so long, you would think they own it. They have slumlords and absentee landlords, some that live in a whole nother state. And when they're interested in lead abatement, they just feel that they have like no rights, no opportunities, and they're trying to go to their landlords. What do you suggest we do for those long-term renters? They also say they're not allowed to benefit from home repair and other places because they are renters, but they have absentee landlords who just basically legally just have to pick up a check every month.
Yeah, I think we really need to work with the landlords in that situation to make sure they know what's available and what's required of them. Because there are different ordinances depending on which municipality they're in on how they need to take care of the home. And I know in the city of Grand Rapids, there's periodic inspections, and the landlords could be affected if the home is in poor condition. But did you have something to add?
Yeah, the health department partners with the city of Grand Rapids, and they have 2 programs right now that we are rolling out to landlords and to tenants. And one program is the HUD program, and that is more of a loan program. There's a lot more hoops to jump through with that program. You have to qualify, you have to have paid taxes, there's quite a few qualifications. There is a new program through Medicaid that the city obtained, and that is allowing us to abate 30 homes in Grand Rapids. And that is weighted by the elevated blood lead level of children. So we get a report every week from the state of children with their lead levels. Those with the highest level get prioritized, and then those children that are the youngest, so between 1 and 2 years of age, also get prioritized. And so that's how we are going through the list and offering this service. And it goes to tenants as well as landlords. And so currently I have a part-time person working on this, and she'll contact the tenants, and then she works with the city to track down the rental property owners. And you're correct, sometimes we are chasing them down across the country trying to get a hold of them.
Okay, thank you for your work, and thank you, Ms. Breeby.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Thank you, Emily. We will now vote on that, and it is not a roll call vote, so all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you. We move then to Resolution B, and I will call on Commissioner Korndike.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move Resolution 20 of today's date to add 1 full-time public health epidemiologist position to work with the opioid task force from the health department.
Second.
Support by Vice Chair Bolter. Questions or comments on this item? Not seeing any. This is not a roll call vote, so all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We move to our third resolution, and again, I will call on Commissioner Korndike.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move Resolution 21 of today's date to add 1 full-time public health epidemiologist position for PFAS, emerging environmental issues, including lead, from the Health Department.
Support.
Support by Commissioner Breeby. Questions or comments on this item? I do not see any. It is not a roll call vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We move to Resolution 4, and I call on Commissioner Mast.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair. I move Resolution 22, which is the first one of getting some trust fund, Michigan Trust Fund grant money for Lowell Regional Park. I move that
Support.
motion.
Support by Commissioner Jones. Questions or comments on this item, this resolution? I do not see any. It is a roll call vote.
On the adoption of the resolution, Commissioners Womack,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Bonk,
Yes.
Talon,
Yes.
Steck,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Punstein,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Melton,
Yes.
Mast,
Yes.
Korndike,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
Bukowski,
Yes.
Breeby,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bolter,
Yes.
Commissioner Antor,
Yes.
Chairman Salfeld.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 18 yeas and 0 nays.
Very good. We move then to the fifth resolution, and I'll call on Commissioner Melton.
Resolution number 23, trust grant funds for the Millennium Park. I move that we adopt this resolution.
Support.
Support by Commissioner Korndike. Questions or comments on this resolution? I do not see any. This is a roll call vote.
On the adoption of the resolutions, Commissioner Womack.
Yes.
Voorhees.
Yes.
Bonk.
Yes.
Talon.
Yes.
Steck.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Mast.
Yes.
Korndike.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Lukowski.
Yes.
Reevy.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Commissioner Antor.
Yes.
Chairman Salfeld.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 18 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. For our final resolution, I will call again on Commissioner Melton.
Thank you, Chair Salfeld. I move that we adopt resolution number 24, which will add 2 full-time correction deputies, sheriffs overseeing inmates on a work release program.
Support.
Support by Commissioner Korndike. Questions or comments on this resolution? I do not see any. This is a roll call vote.
On the adoption of the resolution, Commissioner Womack.
Yes.
Voorhees.
Yes.
Bonk.
Yes.
Talon.
Yes.
Steck.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Mast.
Yes.
Korndike.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Lukowski.
Yes.
Reevy.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Commissioner Antor.
Yes.
Chairman Salfeld.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We move then to agenda item number 9, which is public comment. This is our second public comment, 1 minute. Anybody that has a public comment, please come forward. I do not see any, so we will move to agenda item number 10, which are our reports, and I will begin by calling on Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to share that the Finance Committee doesn't have enough pending items that we anticipate in the future for a meeting on Tuesday, April 3rd. The next meeting will be April 17th at 8:30 in this room.
Very good. Commissioner Korndike.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make a quick report in regards to our airport. Passenger activity numbers are in for February, and they were up 16.31%, bringing our total increase year-to-date at 14.76%, which is much higher than we had anticipated, which speaks to the things that we need to get done at our airport in order to accommodate all the pressures that we have for economic development, additional parking, those types of things. With that being said, myself and our airport director went to Washington, D.C. on Monday and Tuesday, spoke with some members of Congress about the 2 biggest issues that we have to deal with right now, one being the replacement of our air traffic control tower. Just so everyone knows, we plan on replacing it and relocating it, and it will be relocated out by the Federal Express building, if everyone knows where that is, at the northeast part of the airport. We need to be on the list to get that approved, and I believe that we do have our elected officials are going to push that for us. The second item is a FIS, which is a Federal Inspection Station, which allows us to do customs at our airport. We don't have that right now, so we cannot do international flights in and out of our airport. So we have talked to our elected officials on that, and they're going to assist us as well. We also met with the field office operations of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, who is the federal agency that oversees staffing that, which is where we hit a stop before, and they gave us some valuable information that we can use in order to try to get that done after we were stopped at one point to find another avenue to get that accomplished. So we are working hard on that as well.
Very
Thank
good. Good, great things to hear. Any other reports? So you not, Commissioner Stack.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just briefly, the Lakeshore Regional Entity Board did meet last week and proceeded to approve and now implement the process of seeking to find a managed care entity to provide the services that the PHP otherwise provides. This is a radical restructuring of the process. It's one that we are doing with notice to the state and intend to move forward. That process will be implemented over the next 60 days, so we'll report back as things develop.
Very good. Okay, let's move to our agenda item 11, which is miscellaneous. Commissioner Melton.
I just have one, well, actually two quick ones. I had the opportunity to deliver Meals on Wheels. March is Meals on Wheels month. I didn't know they had their own month. And with my background, I thought I knew a lot about Meals on Wheels, and I know very little about Meals on Wheels. So it was an amazing opportunity. I know some of you have. If you haven't, and I mean anybody in this room, take the time to go and see, because they deliver, or they make, over 12,000 meals a week to service our citizens in Kent County. It's pretty amazing.
Very good. Commissioner Korndike.
Thank you, Chair. On a lighter note, I would like to wish the Catholic Central boys basketball team the best of luck. They are pursuing a state championship on Friday at the Breslin Center. They've made the Final Four. If they win that game, they'll play for a championship on Saturday. And also, best of luck to the University of Michigan men's basketball team with a former captain of the team sitting at the table with us and 3 other alumni. Hopefully they get through the Sweet 16 this weekend and on to the Final Four. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Salfeld. So this past Saturday, while a lot of your brackets were busted, I was at an event that highlighted the sciences in Michigan and West Michigan. I want to thank the staff at Grand Valley State, President Haas, that invited me to pass out the medals, along with Reps Lilly, Garcia, Victory, Verheulen, and the Ottawa County Chair, Greg DeYoung. When you get 2,500 students there competing in the sciences, it's a pretty awesome sight. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of volunteers involved, a lot of teachers involved, a lot of parents. And it wasn't just an event for public schools. There were charter schools there, there were private schools there were academies there, along with the slew of the public schools that represent Region 12. Grand Valley opens their door on so many times, and when I hear Burgett talk about this talent shortage in West Michigan, I think the decision for Amazon not to come here wasn't about that we didn't have the talent, but we were up against cities 10 times our size, and of course their talent pool to draw from is going to be bigger than ours. But there's places like Grand Valley, and I think Burgett highlighted in her report that a lot of people that get the engineering degrees locally stay locally. And if the students that competed in this competition are any reflection, we may not get there overnight, but we're going to get there in time. We've got some fantastic students out there and organizations that support events like this. It was their 34th year of doing this. I wouldn't be, remiss if I didn't acknowledge that being from District 7, it took, a lot of pride that there were schools within my district that were there. One of them, Wyoming Public Schools, a lot of challenges over the past decades, a lot of job losses, a very diverse city and school district. The team that teacher and coach Dave Rader put together was just outstanding. Got an opportunity to talk to a lot of the kids after the fact, and science does matter. The Wyoming didn't qualify for the state competition. They were the first alternate if a team has to back out. But I had the opportunity to pass out the first place medals, and just want to acknowledge the 2 students from Wyoming that won one of the events. Becca Hansen is a junior, she's first in her class, and Cindy Vo is a senior and second in her class. Thing I like about it when I'm next to 2 great students like that, one, they make me look younger, and they make me look a lot better looking too. So if anyone wants to see the picture, I was going to try to get it up here, but technology difficulties doesn't allow me to do that. Just check out my social media site. Both of them are on there. And then also, being a former school board member in Granville, it was always a long belief of mine that education happens a lot of times outside those 4 walls. And we hear about the athletic competitions is the first thing people hear when they hear extracurricular. But at Granville during my tenure, I wanted to stress that things like the Science Olympiad, the robotics competitions, which is going to be held at Grand Valley this week, those are all important to all students, so all students can feel challenge and opportunities. So though the Granville High School team didn't fare so well, I want to give a shout out to the Granville Middle School, who did qualify for the state competition. I wish them all the best of luck. And then to tag on to Betsy, yes, it is March for Wheels. Senior Meals is located in my hometown, Granville. I've toured that place a couple times. I toured it when they opened there 5 years ago. And the main theme there was, we've got so much room now. We could do this so much better. We're going to be more efficient. After the tour I took and after my ride along, they are running out of space. As our town gets bigger, the needs are going to increase just by population percentages. So they are leasing additional space in that building, but that is a long-term concern that they have about that. I did do a ride-along. It is March for Wheels, so there's still a week left if you want to do that. I know next week the mayor of Granville is going to do it on a route. I wanted to apologize to my driver that the route I was on, I was told it'd take about 3 hours, and it took well over 4. And I just want to apologize that when you do have an elected officials, my belief's always been most people don't know who their county commissioners were. Most of them knew who I were and wanted to talk about a lot of things. A lot of them watch it on TV, so they're well aware of what goes on in the county. But, Senior Meals on Wheels is more than just delivering food. If that's what it was all about, it would be easy. The most important part for a lot of these people, this is the only contact that they're going to have with the outside society during that day. And there have been drivers that have found people in emergency situations or down or not answering their door. That social impact is far more important than the food that they receive. So of the people I talk to, they're all appreciative of the county contribution to Meals on Wheels and how it impacts their lives. So I just want to thank the county that still is a priority. And I invite anyone just to contact Senior Meals. And if you want to go on a ride along, it's pretty eye-opening. So thank you.
Commissioner Antor.
Thank you. On a totally different topic. It's maple syrup season. If you get out in the rural areas, you see all the buckets hanging. It's quite a process. And if you've never gone on a tour of a sugar shack or anything like that, my wife and I started doing it ourselves about 4 years ago, and I think this year we boiled probably over 200 gallons of sap. And you don't have to live in a rural area to do it. If you got a maple tree in your yard or your neighbor's yard, it's a simple process. It just takes a long time. So I would highly recommend trying it, because you're going to want to tap into somebody's tree, because it is absolutely incredible. It's nothing like what you buy in the store, because that stuff has nothing to do with maple syrup. It's just all fructose and all that stuff. But anyhow, it's a cool time of year. Next year, if you think of it, just go to some of these sugar shacks and watch the process. It's pretty neat. But if you do it in your backyard, it does look exactly like a meth lab. So that's the only other, be a little careful about that.
Well, fortunately, the sheriff's left, so. Commissioner Rudy.
Thank you, Chair. I just have two things. First, I just thought it was really timely that we had the report from the right place with the news that's going on in Gaines Township. There's a planning commission meeting about some large entity that's possibly going to be providing a significant number of jobs in the area, so something to be excited about. So I appreciate all the work that they've done and what they've done too in the southern part of the county. And then the other item too, Deputy McCutcheon, he used to be at Caledonia High School, and I think Darius said this right. If you look at him, you just smile, and he smiles right back at you. And he was just such a positive impact on the kids down there. And now he's in Cedar Springs. So, if we could clone him and have so many other resource officers like him, that would just be awesome. I think, what they do for our schools is just really important. And we've seen a lot of negative things that have happened in the schools the last few years, and more officers like that really help bring a positive light to kids. They find the kids who might be struggling and really help them out. So I really appreciate the work, and I'm glad that we got to honor him today.
Good, thank you. I only have one item. We've had a couple long meetings, so your treat is that I think we can cancel our next meeting. We have to verify that yet with a couple things, but I'll let you know if that's the case. That would be April 12th. So we'll go ahead and leave it in right now, but just stay tuned for that possible change. I have nothing else, so I will call on Commissioner Korndike for adjournment.
Thank you, Chair. I move subject I move to adjourn, subject to the call of the chair, to Thursday, possibly April 12, 2018, at 8:30 for an official meeting.
Support.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.
All right.
I am Kent County. I am Kent County.
I am Kent County.
We are 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 Kent County.
Bayard, Kent County. Ami, Kent County.
Somos Kent County.
Mas Ira, Kent County.
We are Kent County. We are Kent County. We are Kent County. Oh yeah.